Tides of the Heart by Weston Ford. The salt-laden breeze carried the cry of seagulls across Millport's harbor as Abigail Foster made her way down the weathered boardwalk. Her sensible boots tapped against the wooden planks while she balanced a stack of leather-bound books against her chest. The year was 1873, and like every morning for the past 5 years, she was bringing fresh inventory to her father's bookshop. At 23, Abigail had grown intimately familiar with every creaking board and every weathered post along this path. Millport, their small Massachusetts coastal town, had been her whole world since birth. While she found genuine joy in running the bookshop with her father, lately she'd felt an inexplicable yearning for something more, though what that might be remained as mysterious as the horizon where sky met sea. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the dock as fishing boats began returning with their morning catches. Abigail paused to watch them, admiring how the vessel's worn wood gleamed golden in the dawn light. The sight of boats had always filled her with a sense of possibility. Each one carried stories of distant shores and adventures she could only imagine. Her contemplation was interrupted by a sudden commotion. One of the larger vessels had just docked, and a tall man was attempting to manage an unwieldy wooden crate while simultaneously securing his boat. As she watched, his foot became entangled in a coil of rope. "Oh, please, let me help," Abigail called out, carefully setting her books aside. Without waiting for a response, she hurried over, her practical skirt swishing against the dock. The man looked up, startled by her approach. His eyes were a striking shade of blue, not the pale winter sky of New England, but the deeper hue of tropical waters. His face bore the weathered look of someone who spent considerable time at sea, yet there was a gentleness in his expression that put her immediately at ease. "I appreciate the offer, miss, but I wouldn't want to trouble you," he said, his voice carrying a warmth that matched his appearance. Abigail couldn't help but smile at his protective instinct. "I assure you, Mr. Hawkins." "Nathan Hawkins," he supplied, still struggling with the crate. "Mr. Hawkins, I've been helping unload shipments at my father's shop since I was 12. I'm quite capable." Without waiting for further protest, she positioned herself on the other side of the crate. "On 3? A look of admiration crossed his face, and he nodded. Together they lifted the crate clear of the rope and set it safely on the dock. As Nathan freed his foot from the troublesome coil, Abigail noticed that the crate bore markings of a Boston publishing house. "You're carrying books?" she asked, interest piqued. Nathan ran a hand through his dark hair, looking somewhat sheepish. "Yes, though I confess I'm a bit out of my depth. They belong to my uncle, Harrison Hawkins. He passed recently, and I've inherited his shipping business here in Millport." Abigail's eyes widened in recognition. Harrison Hawkins. He was one of our most valued customers at Foster's Books and Lending Library. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Mr. Hawkins. Your uncle had impeccable taste in literature." "Please call me Nathan," he said, then gestured to the crate. "Perhaps you could help me make sense of these. I'm afraid my expertise lies more with nautical charts than novels." "I'd be happy to," Abigail replied, then glanced at her own stack of books waiting patiently on the dock. "Why don't you bring them by the shop later? We're just up Main Street, past the chandlery." "I know the place," Nathan smiled. "I remember visiting once or twice with Uncle Harrison when I was younger." He paused, studying her face. "Though I certainly would have remembered meeting you." A warm flush crept up Abigail's neck, but she maintained her composure. "That's kind of you to say. Now I should really get these books to the shop before Father sends out a search party." As she gathered her stack of books, Nathan called after her, "Miss Foster? Thank you for the help. Truly." Abigail turned back with a smile. "Welcome to Millport, Nathan Hawkins." The morning passed in its usual routine of dusting shelves and updating the lending ledger, but Abigail found her thoughts drifting to the encounter on the dock. There was something refreshingly genuine about Nathan Hawkins, a quality that set him apart from the usual young men who frequented the shop more to steal glances at her than to actually read. Just after the lunch hour, the shop's bell chimed. Abigail looked up from her inventory list to find Nathan in the doorway, the crate of books balanced carefully in his arms. Her father, Henry Foster, emerged from the back room at the sound. "Welcome to Foster's," Henry called out warmly. "How may we help you today?" "Father, this is Mr. Nathan Hawkins," Abigail introduced. "Harrison Hawkins's nephew." Henry's face softened with recognition and sympathy. "Harrison was a dear friend. Please accept our condolences, young man. Your uncle spoke often of you and your adventures at sea." "Thank you, sir," Nathan replied, setting down the crate. "I'm hoping you might help me evaluate these books. They were part of Uncle Harrison's collection, but I'm afraid I wouldn't know a first edition from a penny dreadful." Over the next hour, the three of them carefully examined each volume. Henry's expertise quickly identified several valuable editions, including a beautifully preserved copy of Moby Dick that made Nathan's eyes light up. "I actually have this one on my ship," he admitted, "though my copy is considerably more weathered." "You've read Melville?" Abigail asked, surprised and intrigued. "The sea is in my blood, Miss Foster. I find comfort in stories that capture its spirit." He handled the book with surprising gentleness. "Though I must admit, Melville sometimes makes me grateful I've never encountered a white whale in my travels." The comment drew a genuine laugh from Abigail, and she noticed how Nathan's eyes squinted in the corners when he smiled in response. The afternoon passed swiftly as they catalogued the books, with Nathan sharing snippets of his sailing experiences and Abigail offering literary insights in return. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the shop's front window, Nathan reluctantly gathered his hat. "Thank you both for your help today. Would it be all right if I returned tomorrow? There's still so much to learn about these books and I'd value your guidance." "Of course," Henry replied warmly. "Any nephew of Harrison's is always welcome here." After Nathan left, Henry turned to his daughter with knowing eyes. "He seems like a fine young man. Reminds me of his uncle, same thoughtful manner." Abigail busied herself with straightening already neat shelves. "Yes, he seems very kind." True to his word, Nathan became a regular visitor to the bookshop. He would arrive in the late afternoons, sometimes bearing new discoveries from his uncle's collection, other times simply seeking conversation. Unlike many of the town's other young men, who viewed books as mere decorations, Nathan showed a genuine desire to learn. Their discussions ranged far beyond literature. Nathan shared tales of distant ports and strange customs, while Abigail spoke of her dreams of writing stories of her own. She found herself looking forward to their talks with increasing anticipation, enjoying how he listened with genuine interest and offered thoughtful responses. As autumn painted the New England coast in brilliant colors, their friendship deepened. They began taking walks along the shore after the shop closed, discussing everything from philosophy to their hopes for the future. Nathan spoke of modernizing his uncle's shipping business, while Abigail shared her ideas for expanding the bookshop to include a proper reading room where townspeople could gather. One crisp October afternoon, they sat on their favorite bench overlooking the harbor. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of wood smoke from nearby chimneys. "I've been thinking," Nathan said, his voice careful, "about making some changes to the business." Abigail turned to him, noting the serious set of his features. "What kind of changes?" "I'd like to establish regular trade routes with publishing houses in Boston and New York. Create a reliable way to bring new books to Millport." He paused, watching her face. "The town needs more than just a shipping business for fish and lumber. It needs culture, ideas, stories." Warmth bloomed in Abigail's chest as she realized he'd been thinking about her dreams for the bookshop. "That would be wonderful, Nathan. But surely Boston would be a better base for such operations?" He shook his head, a soft smile playing at his lips. "I thought so too at first. I even received an offer to oversee a fleet there." His eyes met hers. "But I've discovered something important these past months, Abigail. The greatest adventures aren't always found in distant ports." Her heart quickened at the use of her first name. "What do you mean?" "I mean that sometimes the most meaningful journeys are the ones that lead us home." He turned to face her fully. "Being here, getting to know you, sharing ideas and dreams, it's shown me that true happiness isn't about where you are, but who you're with." Abigail's breath caught as Nathan reached for her hand. His palm was warm against hers, and she could feel the calluses earned from years at sea. "I love you, Abigail Foster," he said softly. "Your kindness, your intelligence, your quiet strength, they've captured my heart more surely than any siren's song. I know we've only known each other a few months, but I feel as though I've been sailing toward you my whole life." Tears welled up in Abigail's eyes as joy flooded through her. "I love you too, Nathan. I think I have for quite some time." With gentle reverence, Nathan withdrew a small box from his coat pocket. Inside nestled a delicate gold ring set with a single pearl. "Then would you do me the great honor of becoming my wife? Together we could build something wonderful here, not just a business, but a true home." "Yes," Abigail whispered, then louder, "Yes, with all my heart." As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, Abigail realized that the longing she'd felt for something more had been satisfied not by grand adventures, but by finding someone who understood her completely. In Nathan's love, she had discovered both anchor and sail, the security to remain true to herself and the freedom to chase her dreams. Together they walked back through the gathering dusk, their joined hands promising a future filled with shared stories, mutual support, and the kind of love that, like the tides themselves, would only grow stronger with time. The lights of Millport twinkled before them, no longer representing limitations but possibilities, as they began writing the next chapter of their story together.